Pursuant to Governor Baker's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place due to the outbreak of COVID-19, this meeting of the Town of Berlin Select Board will be conducted via remote participation. The Town of Berlin will post an audio or video recording of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the town's webpage, the town's YouTube channel, and approved minutes will be posted to mytowngovernment.org. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:16. We have executive session. The board will enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. An open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. This is the Fire and EMS Union, and we will return to open session thereafter to further conduct regular business meeting. Keefe, aye.
Stone, aye.
Hawkins, aye.
Okay.
See you in a bit.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I could just, I'm seeing that the trustees are in the audience. I just want to say thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience, Chief. We will be with you shortly. Okay.
Peg, you forgot to vote to leave executive session. Luckily, there was still a quorum, so we took care of it. But
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I saw this from Mary and I'm like, I gotta
Yep.
go. I gotta go. All right.
All right.
we figured out Mary's hand motions and what she was asking for.
All right. So we're back to open session. I apologize for our tardiness. We have approval of minutes for the March 29th open session meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Were those the ones that
Second.
Margaret had sent back around
Yes.
today? Yep.
Yeah.
No worries.
If there's no comments and questions, we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone, aye.
Hawkins, aye.
Okay, motion passes. I don't believe we have any correspondence.
No correspondence.
Margaret,
Okay.
before we move, do you know if Dave responded to the person in town that talked about the paving of Randall Road and I forget the other one?
Matt, I can't answer that yet.
Okay.
I will check with Dave.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so we're on to general public comment. I do not see any hands raised at this point. We'll move on then to our general department update, which is with Chief Galvin.
How is everybody tonight?
Very good. Thanks.
All right. I will. I know you guys are running a little behind, so I will try and be quick. But there's a couple of, at least one very, very important thing that we need to start to talk about. So month of March was pretty typical. Just over 700 calls. The weather was improving, so we saw fewer motor vehicle crashes, which is good to see. We did have one relatively serious crash on River Road East as a result of some dangerous driving behavior, and but luckily it was only one crash that involved injuries for the entire month. Sergeant Shartner and I, at the end of the month, went to an incredible training course. When I first saw that the MPTC had listed it, and Sergeant Shartner and I talked about it, the title was Bubbles and Bridges. Not kind of what you think of as a typical police training course title, but it was about race relations, and it's a young woman and named Nyasha Zamucha. She actually grew up in Zimbabwe towards the end of apartheid. Wasn't allowed to go to school with white children, and she was 8 years old. And as she kind of told her story, she said she walked into that school the first day, and the teacher looked at her, told her she wasn't supposed to be there, and that the next day she needed to come in the back door. So she lived this firsthand, and so that she calls the class bubbles and bridges. And what she means by that is that we all kind of live in our own bubble. We're all, we all have autonomy, and that what we need to do is build bridges to other people's bubbles. And it was one of the best classes I've been to in years. It opened a lot of discussion. I actually wish it had been a 2-day class, because with most training classes, that first part of the morning is very difficult to get people to open up and to speak freely. But she really looked at things and talked to, as an individual, you have different beliefs. And that ultimately she was addressing police officers and said, listen, you can be xenophobic, prejudiced, a racist, and still be a police officer and still be effective, as long as you have an organization that has strong values. And when you do your job, you police to those values. Interesting concept, really sparked a lot of conversation. But it's the type of classes that I think we need to continue to send our officers to. My hope is that they're going to run it again now, especially now, now that I know what it is to get more of our people in. And it's something that if it's open up even to other, through other groups, to other town employees or anyone, it's something that's worth looking at. She, just a unique history, which helped is, she grew up in Zimbabwe, moved to Middle America, to Kansas. That's where she immigrated to the United States, ended up on the East Coast, went to Harvard, was everything from Miss USA Africa. She was a Patriots cheerleader. She's got a philosophy and ethics degree from Harvard, and just someone with very unique perspective that if you ever get a chance to hear her speak, it's worth it. The other big thing, and the thing that I think we need to spend a little time on, or at least start the discussion, is police reform. So we got some updates on police reform and what it's going to mean to departments. We're one of the type of departments that is going to have a major effect. So obviously our department's made up, we're about 50-50 full-time and part-time. It's kind of the philosophy of the town and the department for heavy reliance on part-time officers. And unfortunately, we're going to have some difficulty with that and some expense. So as one of the big portions of police reform was to make sure that we standardize training for police officers across the board. So what that means is our current part-time police officers, when you look to some of our most senior officers who may have as little as 150 hours of initial training, to some of the more recent graduates of the part-time police academy, which are around 500, they're still 300 plus, even the ones that are the most trained, 300 plus hours shy of a full-time trained officer. So what the MPDC has come up with is a bridge academy. So they're still working out the particulars of the curriculum, but their estimate is about a 200 hour in-person training, and then some additional online training. So they've broken it out into alphabetical groups. So, as of July 1st, all of our officers will be certified under the new certification standards. But then it starts out with a group of A through H. So officers whose last name falls in A through H have 1 year to complete this bridge academy. So for us, that's 4 of our officers. So we're going to have to find a way. We're still waiting for some more information, but find a way to get them trained. Which is going to have a cost. We're also going to have to find a way to cover the shifts that they would normally cover. So now we're going to throw them into 800 hours of training. That's potentially 800 hours that they can't work in a police car in Berlin. So that could lead to additional overtime or other things to cover shift openings. That's just one part of the dilemma. There's some work for hopefully a supplemental budget that would possibly bring some funding to municipalities. At the very least, bring some funding to the Municipal Police Training Committee, because there has been no increase in their budget to even run the trainings. So they have a lot of training to run with no budget to actually pay the instructors or any of that. And now we're looking at having to pay our officers to go. So I've already been in touch with Meg Kilcoyne and John Cronin and expressed some of my frustration, and hopefully if there's some debate about a supplemental budget, there'll be some support, knowing that the hardships that it cause an agency like ours. But I think the bigger discussion is that we're going to have to start to have is what are we going to do moving forward? As we hire part-time police officers already trained. They're able to, attend the training for a reasonable cost on their own time, and then they're able to come in and take a job. Now, in order for them to initially be hired, they're going to have to attain the same level of training as a full-time police officer. I am very nervous that the market for part-time police officers is going to dry up. Right now, if you look, just about every agency around us is hiring. So we have the potential of sending 4 of our officers to a bridge training, and then they're a full-time equivalent trained, they may leave. The pool of officers to hire and fill in after that may not be there anymore. So I don't know what the answer is yet. I think it's discussions we're going to have on what the style of our agency is as we move forward. It's kind of one of the unintended consequences of reform. I think bringing the level of training up is very, very important. But for smaller municipalities like ours, it could have a long-term effect to our budget. So it's something we need to keep in the forefront. I'm going to talk to more chiefs about it, talk to the Mass Chiefs about it, and kind of see as we move forward what's going to be available. Because one thing that's difficult is if you're trained right now to the level of a part-time police officer, so you could come in and get hired anywhere. If you don't have a job on July 1st, you're no longer certified. So, we would then have to, if we were trying to hire someone part-time, we either have to find someone who's got the full-time level of training but doesn't have a job. And with the job market as is, that's becoming very difficult because there's plenty of full-time positions. Or someone that may want to jump ship that works part-time and is very happy working part-time and would want to come and work in a different municipality. So just food for thought, but we need to put it out there. We need to start looking at what the potential impacts could be to our community.
I mean, we went through that change a little bit in the fire department because when the on-call people had to have the same level of training as a full-time fire personnel, why would you do on-call if you go through all that training? You might as well get a full-time job out of it. I mean, not that it was easy, and it's taken us years to get through that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of it as soon as possible. That as and the discussions need to be deeper in the future.
I think that it goes beyond that, even through the chair. I really think that we need to start speaking up as a town. You've just expressed a whole litany of concerns with this, not the least of which is cost and losing personnel and not being able to sustain your force. The state auditor needs to start hearing loud and clear from small communities like ours that this is a serious unfunded mandate, and we need to get her attention soon. I don't know if the Chiefs Association is already starting that process.
There's definitely, yes, those discussions have already, we've had those at a couple of the Chiefs meetings. Just last month's Mass Chiefs meeting, those discussions have come up. But last month was the first time we really got this information about what the training could mean and what the potential cost impacts could start to be for a community. I mean, I just looking at us, I'm looking probably at a minimum of $20,000 just to train the 4 officers. Now that doesn't include not having them working to backfill. So if a shift that they normally would have worked now has to be covered by a full-time officer, that's about double the cost or more. So that now could be exponentially grow. So that's something that I'm going to have to look at as in the near future as we start to plan for next year. But I'm optimistic, I guess, that they're going to come up with some funding. Our legislators were wanted to get this done quickly, and now in order to get it implemented, there's going to need to be some funding to go with it. We've already seen a couple of the deadlines missed that were requirements for some of the committees to be formed. And that didn't fall back on law enforcement. That fell back on the legislature. I think they set timelines for themselves that they couldn't even meet because they weren't in session to start to form the committees. So there's a lot. I had a good conversation with Meg Kilcoyne the other day and with John Cronin. And John actually emailed me at the end of last week. So, I'm going to stay in contact with our legislators and keep pushing the issue that some supplemental funding needs to be made available for especially, the smaller municipalities. If you're a larger city or a town that even has part-time or special officers that just do traffic details, well, it's not a big a deal for them to lose those people or not have to send them to training versus ours where they work as patrol officers on a daily basis.
Okay, questions for Tom?
I have two. I'll wait and see if Scott has any.
No, I'm fine.
So Chief, where are we on the vests? It's been about 3 months. Are they a go? Are officers
Yeah.
getting trained? Do we have them?
The
Is
va-
the money being spent?
The cameras. So cameras, I'm waiting for CM Geeks to come in and set up the server. So they're in a box in my office right now. I had a conversation last week with Paul McKenzie about it. So once they have us in or get a scheduled date for the server, we'll get the server in. Once we get the server up and running, we'll be able to start to run the training for the officers. We've had some discussions over the last couple of weeks about it. We did, COVID had put off some of our taser training and it slowed our taser rollout. So as that's another piece of equipment the officers have to carry. Some will be carrying it on the vests that they wear and others on their belt. So I've had some discussion with some of the officers that have the vests, the overcarriers for their bulletproof vests, and on placement and different mounts for the camera. So the discussions have already started. It's really getting that back end server set up, which I don't have the ability to do that on my own. It's to get the CM Geeks in to get that done. So they were working and scheduling it because they had with COVID money, they had some municipalities with an influx of computers, so they were getting those set up. People that had made purchases already.
So how many cameras do we end up having, and do they?
So there's 14 cameras. So each one of the full-time officers will be assigned their own camera, and then there'll be 4 pool cameras that the part-timers will be able to utilize when they come into work.
And on the switching gears to the animal control officer report, so thank you for Helen for putting that in. Can you give her some type of template to use? Because I think some of the comments that are in there, we probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, she does. She does have a computerized template. She actually was going to have these typed for me, but her daughter was sick, so she does all that work at her daughter's house. And so she wasn't able to get over there on Sunday and get that done. So we will hopefully, as we get out of the COVID era, there'll be computerized reports coming every month.
Okay, thank you.
Meanwhile, on the handwritten reports, maybe there's a template that she could use for the handwritten.
Yeah,
report.
what I'll do is she has that one. I'll print out some extra copies for her to use to take notes, kind of in a more organized manner for you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate them coming to us anyway.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Tom.
Yeah, have a good night.
Appreciate you waiting and sticking around.
Oh, not a problem at all.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Hi.
Bye-bye. Okay. And we have a joint meeting with the library trustees. We're going to fill the vacancy.
So Mary, would you please promote Lynette, Linda, and Beth? And here they come. That's her. Here we go.
Hi there. Well, welcome. Glad you could come.
Thank you.
So, do you want to give us just a little background or what's leading us up to this for the public?
Yeah, so Jean Mitchell was one of our trustees, and she was putting her house on the market and looking to move out of state. And it happened a lot faster than she thought. She expected to be here through the end of not the end of her term, but through the end of this election year.
Mhm.
And her house sold real fast, and they found a house real fast, and she's already gone. So Beth lives near her, and they chatted, and Beth was interested, and so Jean came to us and talked to us. Beth joined us at our last meeting, and we kind of talked a little bit about the trustees, what we do, and all that, and then had Jean talk to Eloise and find out what the next steps were to fill the hole that she was leaving. And Beth has also filled out nomination papers to run for the position at the next town election.
Oh, good. All right, then. And as far as, is it Mass General Law, Margaret?
Yes, it's chapter 41, section 11. So that requires the remaining members of the board or committee that has the vacancy to meet with the select board jointly to appoint to fill the position until the next annual town election, which will be May 24th. So, you know, the board did this last week with the Board of Assessors, so well practiced.
Yeah. So is this one vote? Remind me. It's one vote for all of us?
It's one vote for everyone. Yep, it's going to be a combined vote. You're going to take nominations and then you'll go ahead and you'll do roll call.
Okay. So do I hear a nomination for library trustee?
Do I
Second.
nominate Beth or does Beth nominate herself?
No, you can nominate Beth.
Okay, I will nominate Beth Christensen to fill the trustee vacancy.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. And are there any other nominations? I have to ask.
No.
Okay. Then we're going to take a vote on Beth Christensen to join the library trustees. I will vote first, I guess. Keefe, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Wheeler, aye.
Yates, aye.
There you go. Terrific.
Unanimous.
There's a
Congratulations.
joining fee they forgot to tell you, Beth, of $1 bazillion.
So Beth, you'll receive an appointment letter tomorrow from the board's office noting your appointment until until the town election on May 24th. And you'll have to go see Eloise to be sworn in
Okay,
before you take any official action.
okay.
Thank you for your time, Beth. Really appreciate
Thank
you
you very much,
stepping up
Beth.
to do this. very
Thank you
much.
for your nominations and your votes.
Yay.
I'm so
If you need
political.
anything, we're here.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
thank
Thanks,
you all.
Linda. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks,
Yep,
ladies.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
thanks.
Thanks.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and we're moving on to the town administrator report.
Dun, dun,
Try to keep it as short as
dun.
possible. Today's April 5th, which means that the last phase or the last grouping in phase 2 for COVID vaccines has opened. So individuals age 55 and older and individuals with one medical condition are now eligible to make appointments for vaccines. Berlin's positivity has increased along with almost all of our towns. Hudson has now the highest percent positivity over the last 14 days at 4.25% roughly. And the state is tracking the Brazilian variant, the UK variant, and the South African variant, all in Massachusetts. The most prominent one is the UK variant right now. All right, so HR benefits. I'm going to just jump down to various things here. All right, the highway department laborer driver positions. Both of the candidates have completed their pre-employment medicals. I expect to issue appointment letters this week for start dates as soon as next Monday.
Nice.
My contract requires notice to the select board at the start of April of planned vacation carryover up to 5 accrued but unused days to the next fiscal year. I have had very little opportunity to take vacation. I've used 5 days total this year. I do plan at this point to carry over 5 accrued but unused vacation days to FY22. And I have a very short period of time that I must use those.
So as your bosses, can we force you to take vacation time? Like go sit and, hold your laptop hostage? In all
Disable your
seriousness.
login.
Yeah, I mean,
Only-
Margaret,
Only
you
if
need to
it's
take time.
unanimous.
I will be taking a day off in April. I will be taking off April 15th, making that known now, Friday, April 15th.
This just means we're worried about you.
Thank you
Yes.
very much. I appreciate that. We've been on such a roll this year, though. So, all right. And I will. I'll do my best. I'm going to take a day here and there. All right. So FY22 budget. I attached the FinCom's recommended budget in the town report format, the town meeting format. At last week's Finance Committee meeting, the Finance Committee made $707 in adjustments that are comprised of adjustments to elected official salaries, town clerk, Board of Assessors, and Board of Health. So the total cost impact was $707. And after having decreased local property taxes used by $3,790 for a Wachusett assessment adjustment in the school districts in the Tohoto budget, this was increased last week by FinCom by $707. There's still only the 2.5% increase overall. Finance Committee is going to be meeting this Wednesday night, by the way, to take a final look at their formatted budget and to finalize their report for the town report. Which brings me to town reports. Nearly all of them are in. Laurie is completely up to date on the formatting. I'm catching Mary up on where we're at with it. We will be sending the town report to the printer by this Friday. It's going to be gone.
Very good.
23 Linden parking lot resurfacing. I have had to reject all bids and I'm going to rebid the project due to various things, including bid non-compliance with local rules and an anticipated revision of some bid specifications based on the feedback, specifically on wetlands provisions, and clarifying that under the Wetlands Protection Act, the contractor is going to be required to comply with all of those legal requirements and would have to pay for any disruptions made as far as wetlands.
So Margaret, is it going to be more than just, I noticed in your last email, is it more than just the removal and resurfacing? Or is there more going to be done?
It's not going to change those scope. No,
Okay.
it's only going to change the wetlands provisions that were in the addendum. That's going to be the primary thing. So where it said the contractor will be responsible for all costs for wetlands, I'm going to have to specify under the Wetlands Protection Act. So that way we're
Okay.
sure of the guidance, and
All right.
contractors can take into account any kind of cost implications.
All right, so highway will still take care of what you had intended them, and then our town electric guy will take care of that, and
Same footprint, same
okay.
everything, except for those few things.
Okay,
I sent today the contract for Bob Giles groundskeeping and maintenance duties through June 30th, 2021. So those are in place. I will be meeting with Barry and Dave about transitioning to the groundskeeping position and policy oversight for that position in the new fiscal year.
And it's going to be a part-time person hired to do that, right?
Part-time, non-benefited position. The Community Compact Efficiency and Regionalization Grant application. When I wrote this report, Clinton hadn't submitted their cost data, but they have since submitted the cost data, and so we're on the final steps of putting that application together and getting it into the state. The Financial Management Review Best Practices Grant application. Now that we have the consulting estimate, which came in at not to exceed $25,000, it's going to be not only the financial management review, but it's going to take on components like inter and intra-departmental communications, finance-related communications. It's going to develop a tax impact calculator customized for split tax rate. So there'll be a lot of other functions in addition to the basic financial management review. So I'm going to start developing that application now. The next thing I have starred bulleted is the board house. The weatherization estimate came in significantly higher than the board had approved spending on. So I have asked the historical commission to meet on the estimate that came in. The estimate came in at $8,450 to $9,150. You might recall the board approved spending up to $4,500. So I've asked the historical commission to discuss this and plan for an appointment with the board for additional requested funding. And the River Bridge Development Agreement, the subset of the working group is going to be meeting on April 13th. We're going to be reviewing cost data for various provisions of the agreement and the modifications, specifically costs related to ambulance services and infrastructure improvements. I actually called a couple of towns today that have put in small roundabouts in local intersections. So to address the South Street, Pleasant Street intersection, a roundabout could be an option as far as redesign of that intersection. So we're going to try to at least have some ballpark estimates we want to be armed with.
Wasn't there a roundabout there before?
That's a great question.
Not that I know
Was
of.
there?
I've been
Where?
here since '84.
South and Pleasant, in front of the post office.
No,
Okay,
not that I know of.
I'm
It
remembering
might
a different
be
one
a
then.
location for a small, compact roundabout. So
Yep.
I've reached out to towns to try to
Yep.
get their design, engineering, and construction estimates. So I'll keep you posted on that. And that is it.
Margaret, I had a couple question that I forgot to ask on the paving at Linden. I know over the past
Yep.
couple of years, that few people have fallen because of poor drainage in the
Mhm.
parking lot. So is that being addressed, or is it assumed, once it's level, that there shouldn't be any issues?
So people have fallen not only in the lot itself, but on the
Sidewalk,
entering the building. So unfortunately, the ramp entering the building is not within the scope of this project. It
Okay.
is something that we should look at potentially. We could potentially get maybe ADA grant funding
Yeah.
to redo the ramp, the slope. Drainage is definitely going to be addressed as far as when they remove the stuff, they're going to be putting in new drainage. So
Okay.
hopefully that's going to address the potholes and uneven pavement and everything throughout the parking lot.
Okay, and the only other one you had hit on it, the community one-stop. Do we need to do anything on that? I know as we were or as I was whizzing some emails around, you had talked about we needed a paragraph. Is
Yep.
that, do we
Just
still need to do
just
something?
one paragraph on each of those top items, and it can be any paragraph you want, because what that paragraph is going to do in our application, it's going to trigger distribution to the appropriate state agencies for feedback. So I'll get you some more information tomorrow on that.
Okay,
CMRPC did start helping us, but unfortunately they're running out of time. So we're going to have to do it, we're going to have to submit it on the portal ourselves.
okay.
All right,
Can
so
you
we'll try to
send,
round that up this week.
Yeah, I mean, if you can send anything around, like so one was the dam, one was
Yep.
the intersection at Pleasant Street, South Street. Oh, I
And then
forget
the other
one.
one is the Route 62 corridor study.
Okay,
Yeah, so I'll
so
be
you need one for each?
one for each.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
That's all I
Got
got.
any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Then we're gonna
Oh,
move.
I have one. I am so sorry. I do this all the time. I have one more thing. I learned today, so the Conservation Commission had planned to do a forum, a community information session on the wetlands bylaw tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, but they hadn't posted it on My Town Government. So today, I guess it's official. They posted it for Thursday evening at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And that doesn't need to go in the papers or anything because it's not a bylaw or anything. It's just an open forum.
It's not a public hearing, but Mary is sharing it on she's putting it on our town website, Facebook. It would
Okay.
also be a good idea to put it up on Berlin Cable. So Mary, if you hear this, if you could send Brittany a short little blurb for Berlin Cable, that would be helpful.
I did have I'll just mention it now since it came up. I did have a call from someone today who was, very concerned that because of COVID and not being able to talk face to face,
Mhm.
have meetings, that we're even putting this bylaw on the warrant.
I received a call from someone too with that same concern.
Yeah. Um, I said, well, I mean, the conversation, and also I guess my concern too is the fact that they're doing a Zoom rather than waiting till you can do in-person meetings. There's so many people who don't do Zoom,
Mhm.
Right, but we didn't say this was the only one they were going to do, right? They're going to do more than just this.
I
Yes, they
don't
did.
know. I don't know, but I think most people are more concerned the fact that, they can't have an in-person meeting.
Mhm.
So just wanted to share that.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully those people will come to town meeting on that Monday where this is specifically being discussed. And they'll have an opportunity to stand up and ask questions and share their concerns, not only with conservation, but with everybody else sitting in the parking lot.
Yeah, and I did tell this person that called me the same thing, that,
Mhm.
please, it would be Monday night, rather than Saturday. It would be Monday the 17th, correct?
Yes.
Yes, it will be.
Yes.
Okay,
That's specific. That's in the, it's shown in the warrant to be that, yeah.
right. Okay, moving on to old business and pre-town meeting coffee talk. So when Margaret and I put this on the agenda, we were both thinking that perhaps it might be a good idea to have the pre-town meeting and coffee talk be one and the same.
Mhm.
And so, we were talking about April 22nd at 6:30. Is that agreeable to both of you?
I think so.
Yeah, that
Peg?
works.
Is
Okay.
that okay? Because I mean, it'll pretty much take up the entire coffee talk to do the pre-town meeting and budget forum.
But I think
Yep.
that is something that's important enough that, bring your coffee and,
Correct.
be able to
I
hear.
I would love to find a way to spend more time on the zoning and planning bylaw changes and the wetlands one, and less time on some of the budget stuff. Looking at the budget, there's not a lot of. I would highlight a couple potentially any big changes, but none of the the capital items look overly controversial. They have full support of us and capital planning and
Right.
finance committee. I might go over them, but I'd love to spend more time on things that have a lot more nuance to them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
The,
Go ahead.
I did mention to Chris Senni, one of the petitioners, that we do have some guidelines in place for virtual community outreach meetings. And I told him I'd share those with him in case he wanted to do in case they wanted to do a forum on their own petitioned articles.
Okay. I don't think we were going to really, we can talk further about this, I guess, if we need to at next week's meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
So we could reach out to see if someone again from conservation and planning could be there to talk about their proposed changes. I'd hate to put words in their mouths.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, and I should add too that planning is going to have their public hearing next. Sorry.
Yeah, I saw it on my town government. I can't remember the date.
Right.
I'll be
Looks
going
like
to
next-
conservation on Wednesday, so I can
Next
ask
Tuesday.
them if someone will be available or someone's can be available to come to talk, coffee talk.
Mhm.
And give like the Reader's Digest version of
Mhm.
changed and not changed and everything else that goes along with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I have worries that we spend all this time focused on the wetlands bylaw, and the planning board ones have just as, I think, likelihood to be controversial. I don't know if a town meeting I've been to where we've talked about home-based businesses where that's not gone, into all kinds of depth.
It has.
Okay, so maybe we could reverse the order a little bit and give Concom and Planning Board a scheduled time at the coffee talk and let them go through theirs first. I'll talk about it.
All right. We'll move on to the annual town meeting preparation.
Okay, I have drafted motions for each of the articles, and there were two changes that I made to Articles 1 and 2. Article 1, because the parking lot repair article had a strict June 30th, 2021 sunset clause. I have incorporated that into Article 1 for the fire pumper tanker. To extend the sunset clause on both of those articles until June 30th, 2022. And then on Article 2, with the governor's refiling of the legislation, I inserted the exact language from his refiled legislation into Article 2. What had appeared before was from the first round. So this is from the governor's refiled legislation. Other than that, I've made no substantive changes to the warrant.
Okay. Do we need a motion to, or just as we're reviewing, then we each have to come in and sign, correct?
You'll each have to come in and sign the signature page. Yep. I have not heard back from legal yet on the warrant article, so I am going to press legal tomorrow for their comments on the warrant articles to assure they're in proper legal form. And I just want to add that under Article 20, it was requested, that's the cemetery driveway paving. It was requested to put in a 2-year sunset clause. So I did include that as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to send us an email or something when they're ready, or should we plan?
You can come in and sign. We'll have a separate signature sheet. You can go ahead and come in and sign. You can take your vote tonight to approve, to sign, subject to confirmation of legal approval.
That sounds like so moved.
Yes,
Mhm.
I think it's so moved.
and a second, right?
And whoever didn't motion seconded it.
Okay. Okay, sounds good to me. Then we'll take a vote. Keefe, aye.
Stone Eye.
Hawkins, aye.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to go over motions tonight or just review them till next week?
Well, I don't know. What's your pleasure? I think probably we can go over them, but doesn't council go over them also?
Yeah. Why don't we wait? We can hear back from council on the wording in the warrant articles. So if
Yep.
these have to be changed, you won't have to look at them all over again.
Okay,
Yep.
that sounds good. All right. So the next thing on the agenda is the draft community social services resource guide. Did everybody have a chance to look at it?
I looked at it. I thought it was long, but I couldn't find something I wanted to remove from it. So I decided to just let it sit.
Well, I mean, it's good. I've looked at other towns and they're like 30, 40 pages.
Yep.
So I didn't see really anything,
Yep.
with ours that was like, "Ooh."
No, but it lets you know there's a lot of good resources out there.
Correct.
Yeah. So are we are good with that, or do we want to change anything, or?
I think it's a living document. We're going to
Mhm.
find things. Organizations on it are going to change their rules.
Yep.
There's new ones are going to be added. I think I don't want perfection to be enemy of the good. I think that's a great resource guide. I think that it was on our website, available to folks that, and available. I mean, I'd make it as broadly available as we could.
Mhm.
If we had printed copies available at the food pantry is not really a place people hang at this point, but because I think there's a lot of people who use the food pantry that this stuff could be useful for. And so, yeah, I think it's good. I'm great.
We want to start with online and move on from there to printed at some point.
Well, I mean, I maybe this becomes also a topic for coffee talk. To put that out there, just to mention that it is, maybe it's one of those things that we can get to Brittany to run it on Berlin cable. to let people know that they're out there, and maybe you drop off a copy at
Yep.
the post office or the general store
Yep.
or something like that, just so that people know that it's
Mhm.
there.
I might see if I find a slow weekend to break it down into PowerPoint slides so that on cable TV, like a slide could run at a time here and there.
That's
Yeah.
a great
To
idea.
so they because I think its current form is great if I'm reading it, but if I'm just
Yeah.
looking at a screen to see like here are food resources, here are rent resources, here are
Right.
things the town does for people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great idea.
Great. All right. So
There's an
I
adventuresome
wanna thank
teen watching the
Lisa.
show at all.
I want to
They
thank
can do
Lisa
that too.
for putting
Oh yeah,
this
Lisa did great.
together.
Yes.
Yeah.
wonderful job.
At
All
the
right.
same time, I want to welcome Mary back.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Very much so.
We missed you.
Okay. um, and then we have the draft Berlin Memorial School lease agreement.
Okay, so this is now loaded with comments but we have made progress since last
Mhm.
week. So Eloise did have a plan filed in her office. At first, it was thought maybe it would have been filed at the Registry of Deeds, but no, it was filed in her office. She has it, and I think you saw an email from her that she is trying to have copies made. She's also reaching out. I know she's here, and I can't remember the person's name who served on the committee at the time. She's reaching out to them to try to get more details on what the parcel contained besides the building itself. So we're going to try to reference the plan and the committee's notes and piece that together.
So
But
the
it's coming along. And thank you for picking.
the person that Eloise is referring to, was that Joni Bergen? No?
It might be. Oh my God,
Okay.
Louise. Here she
And then
comes. And Chris, thank you for finding the duplicate paragraphs. That shortens it a bit.
Eloise, you're on if you want to speak.
If you, is
She's
she
muted.
muted?
yeah, we'll watch that. Has the school seen this at all? Do we have some of their feedback
No,
of what they?
this is still
They,
an
they saw
initial.
it back in 1995.
Mhm.
And so I am going to ask Joni Bergen and or Barry, because I remember Barry had to get up and, show the specific parameters to the town meeting. And I want
Okay.
3 copies, one for the school principal, and then one for the superintendent and office and the selectman's office when they have this agreement done. I did send an email to Tom Sanford today, and he graciously said he would scan it for me and provide 3 copies. So,
Nice.
Great. That's great.
yeah, because I went down to Neshoba and you can't drop off. They assume everything is PDF and you can send it to them and then get copies, but there was no way you could drop off anything.
Mm.
So I want this done. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep.
Thanks, Eloise.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I just worry. I don't want to be too far down the path of developing this and then have some major flaw that we don't think about because we've not incorporated the schools. They have a totally different idea about something. And so the sooner we get a draft to say, this is draft, we're still negotiating, we might not even fully agree to all the things on here, but your feedback would be
Yeah.
great because I want to go into this thinking that we are partners, that we're not trying to screw them over. They're not looking to try to screw us over, that I think it'd be good to hear from them.
Yeah. And no matter what, it's going to take some discussion to define what the least premises is. So,
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Looks like we have no new business tonight. So we're on to board questions and comments and liaison updates. Anybody?
I don't-
Okay.
I've said a lot during the meeting.
I do have a Zoom, a COA meeting update, Zoom. Um, actually, the reason I said that was because they're doing yoga on Zoom, but we'll start some in person. Tai Chi is looking for interest, or looking for people interested, I should say. They have 2,500 to 3,000, I believe, left in their coronavirus relief fund. And I believe Margaret and Victoria were going to check on the details for meals delivery or pickup, the qualifications to use for the coronavirus, relief fund, right?
Yep.
They had discussion on the Powder House News and town articles that they can put in it, and discussion on different cable town videos to post. They were going to have vaccine and COVID information on the COA website, and the COA was going to create a myths and misconceptions bulleted document and a possible webinar on information and misinformation on the vaccine and COVID. Their next meeting would be April 27th at 4 p.m. That's my notes.
Nice.
Okay. Anything else? I'll give you
Go for it, Peg.
two.
No.
No.
That's because you already asked so many questions. You got
I did. As and when I lean away, I'm like looking in my notebook. So no, Margaret picked them all off earlier. So I got,
goose egg.
yep, I got double goose egg.
All right. Well, if that's the case, then I believe we have to make a motion to adjourn.
Removed.
Second,
Okay. Keith, aye.
Stone eye.
Hawkins, aye.